back. A coalition of conservation groups in Ghana is asking government to give legislative backing to the National Youth Policy. The document, which is being outlawed today as part of the International Youth Day, primarily aims to ensure a comprehensive framework and direction for all stakeholders involved in the implementation of policies, programs and projects for youth development. However, in a bid to ensure that the youth of Ghana are formally recognized as key partners in Ghana's development, a coalition of 7 civil society organizations is actually asking government to plan a deliberate policy and legal framework that will prioritize the well-being of future generations. Joining us via Zoom now is Darrell Bosu. He is Deputy National Director at Rocha, Ghana. Thank you, sir, for your time. So today we do know that obviously we're marking the International Youth Day. Just days ago, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority, Parizanam Hajda, was in studio talking about the same document you are touching on. Here's the reason he gave us to, first of all, the revision of the youth policy and what government is seeking to achieve now. About the National Youth Policy itself, how did you arrive at finalizing that document, first of all?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you and to our cherished viewers, especially the young people of this country. There are almost 12 million out of which 2,000 will be gathered at the Anakazo Bible Ministry Training Center in Ekropon and not Accra.
Okay, so it won't happen in Accra. Okay,
it will happen in Ekropon at the Anakazo Bible and Ministry Training Center for the first ever National Youth Conference. But you speak about the National Youth Policy. The last time that Ghana had a National Youth Policy was in 2010. And by 2014, they developed an implementation plan. And when His Excellency President Akufo-Addo assumed the reins of power, he instructed that we should look at the policy to review it. Policy documents are dynamic, as you know, because circumstances change, and so the framework within which development must occur has to respond to the exigencies of the time. And so there was a consultative process. There were regional-based consultative meetings. There were stakeholder consultative meetings, even at the national level, bringing youth groups on board, bringing civil society organizations, and so on. And of course, it ended up on the desk of His Excellency the President and Cabinet. And not too long ago, we received Cabinet approval for both the policy document, the National Youth Policy 2022-2032, and its accompanying implementation plan. And we are quite excited. In fact, my personal view is that the policy document and implementation plan, which we inherited, was more like the strategic plan of the National Youth Authority. But our view,
so this is a revised.
This is revised
policy,
and therefore it is more comprehensive. Like I was saying, we held the view that what we inherited looked more like the strategic plan of the National Youth Authority, and that a youth policy, in its real sense, should be cross-cutting in nature, because there are many departments, agencies, and ministries that are involved in the youth development ecosystem. For instance, if you read the youth policy, for instance, on the matter of education, the youth of Ghana have aspirations, and they have, for instance, said that they feel that there is a mismatch between curriculum and the needs of the job market and industry, and that there is a need to review curriculum so that the needs of industry can be captured. The National Youth Authority, or its mother ministry, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, is not responsible for developing a curricula. It's for the Ministry of Education. So that is for education. In health, the youth have aspirations. In agriculture, we do. In trade, in industry, and in interior security, we do have. So what we have done is to galvanize and bring together the views and aspirations of the youth and align it with our developmental priorities and the vision of His Excellency the President into the policy document. And so it is much more comprehensive. So if you check the implementation plan, for instance, there are many things that the ministry, our mother ministry, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, or even us at the National Youth Authority are not responsible for, but some other ministries, departments, and agencies are responsible for that. Like I said, I give you the example
of the education and all.
But what we do at the National Youth Authority and at the ministry is to have a tracking mechanism to ensure that across all the various spheres of national life, the aspirations and the plans that are captured in the policy are reflected in the programming of all the various ministries. And
so let me bring in Daryl at this point. Already we know that that program is underway. The president will be addressing the gathering there. But you are going ahead to call for an intergenerational plan and not necessarily a policy as we're seeing it from the National Youth Authority. Why so? You'd have to unmute for me, Daryl, first of all, so we can get the point you're making.
Is that okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think, yes, we might be talking about the same thing, but we are asking for more. As you know, we have from time to time been coming out with several policy documents, several policy provisions on several issues. And for a long time, the youth have been participating in several discussions and discourse on several national issues. And most of the time, we are recognized during the participation. But the question has been, to what extent are the views of the youth really taken seriously? It is good to have a policy which is looking at the challenges the youth are facing now. But in the policies that we have seen over the years, if you take the first one, which is a 2010 youth policy, and even the current one that is going to be outdoors today, maybe later today or tomorrow, we don't see any specific provisions that is looking at what is going to benefit the youth of tomorrow.
And when you say that, government will challenge you on that because they talk about how coordinated this youth policy would be. But when you say you want more, in concrete terms, what are you seeking to see, at least if not in the document, then let's talk about the action of government then.
Thank you very much. I think the issue is that we always talk about the exigencies of the times. We're talking about now. If you look at the planning processes, government will do this policy nicely, but you see that when leadership, the political, the executive is planning, is taking certain decisions at the national level that has national implications in terms of how they look at the implications and the risks and burdens on generations that will come after us today, that has always not been taken very seriously. And we are saying that government should look at really restructuring the structures in terms of the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and all agencies that is aligned to some of these state organs of state, and ensure that there is a deliberate legal compulsion that ensures that planners and decision makers not only think about the exigencies of these times, but also think about the risks and burdens we are transferring onto future generations as a result of some of the decisions we take today. So you can see that a policy is good. And even in this policy, as I mentioned, there is nothing that talks about tomorrow's generation. If we are really taking action and thinking about tomorrow's generation, there are several policies that we are not going to take lightly. Issues of climate change, issues about food insecurity. Now we are talking about food security for today. How are we as a country planning for food security tomorrow? I'm sure you might be aspiring to have children. I have children. I'm looking at their future tomorrow, how Ghana is going to be sufficiently good and green to support their lives and generations after them. So this is what we are talking about. It is not just about coming out with the youth policy. We are talking about a clear legal framework that protects also the resources and opportunities and even the aspirations of future generations. Now we are all seen to lock down in a political short-termism of 4-year term development planning, 8 years, 10 years, and all of that. But we are saying that Ghana needs to think beyond 10 years, 8 years, and think about generations 40 years from now. What kind of Ghana are they going to benefit in terms of the resources available to them, the water resources, the climate services available to them, the biodiversity experiences and interactions available to them? This is what we are talking about when we mention intergenerational equity in respect of resource use and also decision making.
And going through your statement, I get sense that most of you are in the conservative space. So you're also concerned about the preservation of our environment, looking forward to the future. That also brings up a number of issues. We have some outstanding matters which perhaps may be of concern to you in terms of that intergenerational plan, which has got to do with our forest reserves. How do we connect the dots to youth empowerment and by extension as we mark this International Youth Day?
Yes, thank you very much. I think you are very right. And when we talk about intergenerational rights, we're talking about the extent to which we are using resources. It's also talking about the risks and burdens, even financial costs, even political weaknesses in our structure, and how in the future is going to affect youth of tomorrow. So in terms of empowerment, you cannot look at empowerment if you're only focusing on today. So this is a system-wide issue. If we had right from the beginning looked at the future of the youth, say some 20 years ago, and asked ourselves, how do we position the youth in terms of the opportunities and aspiration that they will have? We had the director for the National Youth Authority talking about the fact that they are going to look at how we combine, we will look at the academic system in terms of training and industrialization, how the two of them align. It's all about thinking about the future. So if you had right from the beginning tried to have this alignment in mind, we wouldn't have gone to a stage where there seems to be a vicious cycle. Every government comes, rolls out a new policy, and the cycle keeps repeating and repeating without the issue being addressed. So we are saying that it's a system where they have a clear legal framework that compels state agencies to think about the future in all planning that they do.
So where do we start from, and what do you intend to do as a coalition of at least 6 or more civil society groups? What next are we to expect from you?
Yes, I think we've started a course of action where we are going to engage. I mean, using the National Youth Policy as a basis for us to engage. So we take the policy and then look at what more needs to be done to move this policy beyond just looking at the exigencies of this time in a 10-year scope, and then look at beyond our lifespan, what would the future generation benefit from? And because it involves a lot of engagement also in relation to the legal framework and act and all of that, it might need also an engagement with the legislature, which is parliament, and also definitely a lot of engagement with some of our senior citizens to also look at what kind of legacies they want to leave here. And all of this would require a lot of lobby and advocacy. And this is the course of action we are committing to in the months ahead of us.
And Green Ghana, if that agenda is to be sustained, we're also looking up to the future, looking at the long-term plan government has. How do you intend that we sustain that vision, not just of this president, but it appears to be national in nature?
Yes, I think Green Ghana, as we know, we've had 2 editions of it. And as you know, we have already put out several recommendations in terms of how it should be implemented. And we know that there's already a state agency, which is the Forestry Commission, which has got an all year round mandate to ensure the protection and also growth of our forest ecosystem. So I believe that instead of it being handled by the ministry, which changes from time to time, let's hand it to a statutory body like the Forestry Commission and let them make it a part of their daily lives, a part of their daily work plans, and push these things forward. Because I'm afraid that if in the future there is a change of government, there is definitely going to be some casualties in respect of certain policies that are being implemented now. I mean, we all know how our political system works, and I'm afraid if we don't have a government that comes and says, okay, maybe I like this, I don't like this, and we can never tell what might happen. But in the meantime, to sustain this effort, let's push this policy into the working framework of the Forestry Commission and make it a long-lasting program for the benefit of all Ghanaians.
I guess the youth are also at the other end of the equation. What's your expectation of them?
Well, I think the youth, as you know, have always been positive. Ghanaian youth are very ingenious. They are looking for opportunities. They are doing all they can and all of that. So far, I would say we've demanded a lot from them, and they have not failed the call. There is more to do. They keep pushing, but we need to also see leadership giving them that opportunity beyond participation in meetings and decision making. So as we all go out there and push for our rights and all of that, we also need to try and work within the legitimate opportunities that exist for all of us. And we should keep working hard. We cannot relent even though there are challenges in the system. I believe that the youth should keep striving for what is best for Ghana, and above all, put nationalism and patriotism above all else. That's what I would say to the youth as well.
Darryl Bosom, I'm grateful for your time here on The Pulse.
Thank you very much.
The next